major explosion of fire at Con Edison's Hellgate station in the Bronx has plunged part of New York City into darkness and much of the city into confusion this evening. At the explosion site,
the explosion and fire was absolutely astounding.
The explosion sparked a natural gas fire at Con Edison's Hellgate station. At least one person
It's very warm here this afternoon as a result of that. Now, the flames finally were turned off, or the fire was turned off, when Con Ed crews several blocks from where we are manually shut down.
Though most gas emergencies are rarely as dramatic as at Hellgate, they must all be handled with the same careful knowledge that natural gas can be potentially dangerous. We at Con Edison maintain gas service for over 1 million customers in the New York Westchester area. That's a lot of pipeline and a lot of meters. We do everything we can to make that service safe. But occasionally there is an accident. Perhaps a leak develops at an appliance, or a contractor digs up one of our lines. Whenever there is a gas emergency, we'll be there as quickly as possible. But often you firefighters will be the first on the scene. That's why we've prepared this program, to help you handle gas emergencies safely and efficiently. The same properties that make natural gas a good fuel also make it a potentially dangerous one. The following questions and answers will test your knowledge of natural gas.
Is natural gas heavier than air?
No, natural gas is lighter than air. So if gas is leaking out of doors, it quickly dissipates into the air. However, some gases, like propane and butane, are heavier than air. They'll settle in low spots, like basements. So if you get a call for a gas leak, find out what kind of gas it is. Now, on this program, we'll be talking about only those emergencies involving natural gas.
Does natural gas have an odor?
No. What you smell is mercaptan, a chemical odorant that's added to the gas supply so that even a small leak can be detected.
Is natural gas poisonous?
No. However, if a room fills with natural gas, it will displace the air and could lead to suffocation. And another important point is that asphyxiation by carbon monoxide poisoning can be caused by improperly maintained appliances.
Does natural gas always burn? No. Natural gas burns only when mixed with air in concentrations between 5 and 15%. We can show this by sending a spark through this cylinder in which we mix air and natural gas. Only when the gas-to-air ratio reaches 5% does the spark ignite the mixture. At a 10% concentration, the mixture is at its most explosive. Now, at levels more than 15%, the mixture becomes too rich to burn. But remember, when ventilating this rich mixture, you are adding more air and thereby re-entering the explosive range.
The ignition temperature of natural gas is about 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. In practical terms, this means that it doesn't take very much. An open flame, static electricity, switches on a doorbell, flashlight, or circuit breaker. Even a spark from a fireman's portable radio can ignite it. So the best rule of thumb is not to operate any electrical switches near a suspected gas leak.
Natural gas comes to Con Edison through pipelines from gas fields located in the southern United States. The pressure of the gas in these steel pipes can be up to 600 pounds per square inch. Once we receive the gas, we distribute it to customers through a vast underground system of mains, usually along city streets. Now, from these mains, service lines go directly into the customer's premises and then into a meter. These service lines may be either steel or plastic. The most typical services you will encounter are low pressure service with single meter installation. This will be about 1/4 psi. High pressure service. Note the regulator on the supply side of the meter. This reduces the pressure of the gas from around 60 psi to around 1/4 psi. A multiple meter installation. And finally, a typical industrial meter service.
When responding to a gas emergency, it may be necessary for you to turn off the supply of gas to an endangered area. Starting with the appliance and working toward the supply side, your first point of control is the appliance valve. Now this requires a 1/4 turn to shut off. Following the appliance valve is the meter valve. This is located on the supply side of the meter.
Meter valves come in different sizes, but they all have the same basic parts. Inside is the core. It turns inside the casing to either block gas or let it flow. Connected to the core is a rectangular stem. When the stem is turned parallel to the pipe, the gas is turned on. When it is perpendicular, it is off. This will be a 1/4 turn. In most cases, the stem can be turned with a wrench. But once in a while, valves get stuck. Now, if the stem won't move under normal pressure, don't force it. Get someone from Con Edison to work on it.
The next point of control is located just inside the building, at the head of service valve, or sometimes called the main service valve. This will also be a 1/4 turn valve. The next point of control is outside of the building and is called a curb valve. Normally, these curb valves are located about 3 feet below the surface of the sidewalk in front of the building. They can be identified by a 4-inch square concrete or steel cover over the curb box.
However, a curb valve may also be found on the lawn, as in Westchester, and even in the street.
This is especially true of some of our newer services in Queens. If that's the case, do not operate it. Wait for Con Edison to arrive. A curb valve in the street can be difficult to distinguish from a main valve, which will supply the gas to many customers. The best rule is not to touch any valve in the street.
There are still rare cases when an old building will not have a curb valve. Here, the service valve will be located at the point of entry on the inside of the building. Whenever a fire department unit must close any valve, let us know about it through your dispatcher. That will allow us to restore the service as quickly as possible. And a very important point is, once you have turned off any gas valve, do not under any circumstances turn it back on. Allow only Con Edison service representatives to do that. Unlike other utilities such as electricity and water, gas cannot simply be turned back on. When it is turned off, all the pilot lights go out. And before we can restore service, we must first ensure that no leaks have occurred. Then we must check all gas appliances and relight all the pilots. That means we need access to all the affected locations.
Any successful response to a gas emergency will depend heavily on maintaining clear lines of communication between the fire department and the gas company. Here is a behind-the-scenes look at how Con Edison responds to a gas emergency.
Con Edison gas emergency.
Special phone lines from the fire dispatcher are dedicated for gas emergencies. The lines operate 24 hours a day.
Gary, I got a contractor damage.
Once we have your location, a crew, a supervisor, or a service person in your area is dispatched to the scene.
076, I received that fire department on location at 252 Street and 85th Avenue. Contractor damage and gas in 2 buildings. Signal 4.
In transit, the emergency crew stays in contact with the gas dispatcher's office. Maps are kept for every street, which are referenced, so the emergency gas crew will know the sites of all principal gas valves. When the gas crew arrives, they carry testing apparatus, plans, and equipment to operate valves, to work with you in handling the situation.
How you doing, Chief? Carl Sutter from Con Edison.
I'm Chief Regler from the 3-4 Battalion.
Let's now take a look at several actual emergency situations with Captain Brian Dixon of the New York City Fire Department.
This is a construction site in Queens. Sites such as these are a common place for gas leaks to occur. Pipes can be disturbed, and backhoes can break or puncture them.
Fire Department, Dispatcher 257, what's the address of the fire?
Very often, it's the fire department who will get a gas emergency call first.
Okay, what's the location? 85 Avenue and 252 Street. All right, sir. Fire department's on the way.
If the fire department is the first to arrive on the scene, there are several actions that you should take. Begin by making the surrounding area safe. Stretch a precautionary hand line.
Wrap it down, he's going away. Get ready. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Go.
Rope off or barricade the area. As soon as possible, you should call in your request to the fire department dispatcher for Con Edison to respond.
We have an odor of gas in the area and have Con Ed respond, okay?
Take all necessary safeguards against an accidental ignition. If necessary, call the police to help with rerouting traffic from the site. And keep vehicles away from the excavation.
Now, if the leak is in an area that poses a serious hazard to people or property, and Con Edison has not yet arrived, the officer in charge should consider ways of stopping or slowing the flow of gas.
A leak on a plastic service could be secured by folding the pipe back upon itself and tying securely. A separated low-pressure service could be secured by stuffing rags into the pipe.
Now, even though a leak is out of doors, gas can collect or be blown into nearby buildings. Check all surrounding buildings for odors. If your unit has gas detection equipment, use it. A real concern is a damaged service, which is possibly pulled apart inside a building.
On this location, the plastic pipe was pulled. However, a leak was not detected. When the pipe was snagged, it broke inside the building, allowing gas to accumulate in the basement and possibly explode. Remember, it is important to check all surrounding buildings when a leak is reported. When gas is burning outside, unless life or property is in jeopardy, don't try to put out the fire. Remember, burning gas won't explode. There is, however, a threat of the fire spreading due to the radiant heat of the gas burning. It's our responsibility to wet down the surrounding combustibles until the gas can be shut off and the fire extinguished. In situations where safety requires that action be taken immediately, the fire official in charge can move to shut off the gas at the curb valve. This should be done only when the person in charge isn't exposing himself to any undue hazard and is fully trained in the use of curb keys. Ideally, it's done by Con Edison.
If a curb valve is not visible, have the dispatcher contact the Con Edison gas dispatcher. He'll have the exact location of that building's curb valve. And an important point to remember here is never attempt to turn on any valve once it has been shut off. Leave this for Con Edison. Broken or plugged flues from an appliance or furnace can cause combustion products, such as carbon monoxide, to leak into the surrounding area. After notifying Con Edison, the most important thing to do is try to isolate the appliance by closing its valve, or if necessary, the gas meter. Should you discover an inside gas leak, notify Con Edison immediately and try to isolate the leak by shutting down the appliance valve, the meter, or the service valve. Also, take all precautions to prevent accidental ignition. Do not turn on or off any electrical switches which could ignite the gas. If faced with a situation like this, ventilate the building starting at the top. Remove all occupants and search for any victims overcome by the gas. Remember, when ventilating a building, you have a 5 to 15% range in which natural gas can ignite. And the only sure way to know is by using a gas detection device, such as a combustible gas indicator. If your unit has one, it should be used. It's the only reliable way to make sure that the area is safe. When escaping gas is burning in buildings, the officer in charge will have to determine if the gas can be shut off. It's possible to do so at the curb valve, at the head of service, at the meter, or at the appliance. If it is at an industrial site or large multiple dwelling, think carefully about shutoffs. There may be other industrial sites or apartments in the area that are affected, and the results can be costly.
We've covered a lot of ground, so let's recap some of the important points. Don't forget to call the gas company immediately. Don't use any materials or anything in the area that could cause a spark, including doorbells and switches. Don't attempt to put out the gas fire unless the valve is turned off, and use spray only on surrounding areas. And finally, once the valve is turned off, don't turn it back on. Leave that for Con Edison. Like the fire department, Con Edison is ready to respond to emergencies 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We at Con Edison encourage you to seek our help whenever the fire department is called upon to fight a natural gas fire. By working together, we can all react safely and successfully to any gas fire emergency.
The Empire State heats with it. The UN cools with it. It sterilizes at Bellevue Hospital and makes hot water for the plaza. Steam is an essential energy source in Manhattan, and the Con Edison steam system is one of the largest in the world. 100 miles of pipe serve nearly 2,000 residential and commercial buildings.
Steam is also a unique example of energy conservation because it's actually used twice. 60% of the steam sent to customers is first used to generate electricity. But like any energy supply system, line breaks can occur, and as a firefighter, you may need to respond to a call involving a steam line break. In this program, we'll answer questions about the Con Edison steam system. We'll take a look at steam incidents, see how they differ from other emergencies, and how best to contain them.
What is steam? Most of us know that steam is the vapor phase of water which results from boiling. But what most of us don't realize is that steam itself, the superheated vapor, is not visible. What you can see is the condensation. Condensation is steam changing back into water, which happens only when steam vapor starts to cool. Some condensation is a normal part of any steam system. But condensation takes energy out of steam, so Con Edison pressurizes and heats steam to minimize condensation. All Con Edison electric plants generate both electricity and steam, but only 7 plants are steam send-out facilities. 5 send-out plants are in Manhattan. 1 is in Queens, and 1 is in Brooklyn. These plants deliver steam to the borough of Manhattan only, servicing an area below 96th Street on the west side and below 89th Street on the east side. Most major apartment complexes, commercial buildings, hospitals, and new buildings in this area are Con Edison steam customers. Steam is produced in plants by sending water through oil or gas-fired boilers. Pressures and temperatures here can reach 1,600 pounds per square inch and 900 degrees Fahrenheit. The distribution system then delivers it through a network of mains at an average pressure of 150 pounds per square inch and an average temperature of 370 degrees. Underground, steam mains can be found in several places. They may run under traffic lanes, curb lanes, or sidewalks. Manholes allow access for maintenance. Typically, they house an assembly of fittings such as anchors, valves, and expansion joints. Anchors secure the mains to the ground. Expansion joints accommodate movement as the pipe expands and contracts. In 1990, Con Edison began the Steam Enhancement Program. Scheduled for completion in 1999, the goals are to upgrade the entire system and to minimize the potential for pipe or fitting failure. The program rebuilds manholes and replaces fittings where breaks usually occur, but does not replace all the buried piping and asbestos insulation. Today, all manholes are free of asbestos, while about 90% of buried piping remains asbestos covered. Steamline breaks are rare. However, there are several conditions that can cause them. Nearby construction, for example, can accidentally damage steam mains. Condensation is another factor. If too much accumulates, steam can come into contact with this water and force the water slug through the system at a high velocity. Excessive amounts of condensate can also trap a volume of steam. This can cause the steam to collapse instantly like a bubble, creating a pressure pulse that may damage pipe and fittings. Unlike a fire, gas, or electrical emergency, which can worsen or spread with time, damage at a steam emergency is usually instantaneous, with an initial eruption of steam and debris. The potential for contamination by airborne asbestos exists until the break is isolated and the steam is shut off. After the steam is shut off, containment of the emergency depends on establishing and maintaining a hot zone. In steam emergencies, the hot zone is the area surrounding the break where the steam or asbestos pose potential hazards. Safeguarding this area prevents traffic through a potentially hazardous space and protects emergency personnel and bystanders from possible contamination. Hazards associated with steam include thermal burns from high-temperature steam or any exposed fittings or pipe, asphyxiation, which can occur when steam fills an enclosed area, such as a manhole or plant corridor, and displaces the oxygen, and noise. Escaping steam can create an extremely loud noise that stops all communication, especially at plants where noise reaches enormous levels. High-pressure, high-temperature leaks pose a special hazard inside plants. Here, steam has enough force to cut through metal and can be difficult to locate because it is invisible. As a rule of thumb, however, the sound of escaping steam and condensation indicate the presence of a leak.
Hello, I'm firefighter Tony Page. Knowing the hazards of steam, its service area, and properties helps you to reduce risk when responding to an emergency. To give you a better idea of how to conduct safe operations, let's look at 3 steam events. One at an apartment building, one involving a street main, and one at a generating plant.
During the winter, the fire department sees an increase in reports of broken radiators and reports by people who may mistake steam for fire and smoke. Responding units first determine if the building is accessible, investigate the extent of damage, and then shut off the appropriate valve, which is usually the resident's radiator valve or the inside service valve. Use the inside service valve if the leak is located in an inside service line, or if you can't gain access to a radiator valve. Never resort to guesswork by randomly trying other valves. The inside service valve shuts off steam to the entire building. Every Con Edison supply building has one, labeled and sealed at the point where the service line enters. All of them turn off in a clockwise direction. If you do need to shut down a service valve, never turn the valve back on, and always inform Con Edison of any valves you do close.
Good. We turn a steam valve off. Steam is dissipated.
That way, Con Edison can drain condensate that may have collected in the pipes in order to restore service safely and avoid a hazardous eruption. Your unit may be the first to arrive at a steam main break, where the potential for asbestos release is a key factor. From the start, you should treat the incident as if asbestos is involved and follow the New York City Fire Department emergency response plan for hazardous materials.
Battalion 4 to 4 Alpha. Special call hazmat and ask for the ETA, Gary.
As part of procedure, your officer will cordon the area off, notify Con Edison, and call hazmat. If needed, your unit will search for endangered people and evacuate residents in buildings that may have been exposed to airborne debris.
We'll notify Con Ed, and we're going to need the police department here for control. Who can let us know if we have a contamination? He's gonna check now. Okay.
Con Edison checks the debris for asbestos, and so does the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. However, these test results can take hours. As an alternative, hazmat runs a quicker sample test for asbestos. While not 100% accurate, this test serves as a good preliminary indicator.
All right, guys, we're going to have to take some sampling kits, okay? And we're going to go over to the edge of the leak. All right? Ready to go.
Always wear the appropriate personal protective gear, including Tyvek suits and self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA, at all times. Limit your entry into the hot zone. And if you're exposed to asbestos, you should report to the contamination reduction zone and stand by. Park trucks upwind from the plume fallout at least a half a block away if they're not needed for rescue or access. An on-duty supervisor and crew are usually the first Con Edison units to respond. They take immediate steps to isolate the rupture until the Con Edison incident commander, also known as the White Hat, arrives. The White Hat takes over for the response crew and remains in charge, directing Con Edison crews and working with the fire department to provide technical information. Hazardous noise could also be an obstacle. To combat noise, chief officers should station a firefighter inside the battalion van in order to relay radio instructions to incoming units.
Tire 4, Alpha 10-4.
A line break at a steam generating plant presents a number of possible hazards. There's great potential for miscommunication due to tremendous noise and the sheer number of people responding to the emergency. The plants are large complexes where boilers produce very high pressure, superheated steam, and turbines generate high voltage electric power. They house electrical equipment and asbestos insulation, They also store an array of chemicals and flammable liquids, including sulfuric acid, caustics, and thousands of gallons of fuel oil.
I'm going to go and talk to the White House. Okay.
Because of the vast scale of the plant, Con Edison white hat procedures are different from those of a steam main break in the street. Responding units should find the Con Edison white hat at the Con Edison command post, normally at the plant's front gate.
Okay, what do we have?
This white hat acts as the liaison for the fire department, and the Con Edison white hat commander who remains inside, near the site of the incident, directing crews as they isolate the leak and control damage. The Con Edison white hat commander relays information to the white hat liaison, who serves as the commander's spokesperson, updating the fire department, the police, and other response teams.
Okay, so you have a confirmation of evacuation on the third floor.
Yeah, we do have a confirmation. Everybody's out of the building except the people in the control room, okay?
Unless there's an immediate and clear danger to personnel, no firefighter should enter the plant.
Bye for now, okay?
Okay, well, the fire department will be taken up then if we don't need that service anymore.
For obvious reasons, if entry becomes necessary, never enter without a Con Edison guide, and never enter without the appropriate personal protective equipment and SCBA.
We're out of here.
One other call.
The location can and will change, but the basic facts never do. And handling a steam emergency safely depends on knowing the facts. Have a safe tour.